Jeremy Corbyn, what's your view?
Well, I think he's obviously got enormous problems, not just over the resignations, but also over the government's lack of direction on child poverty and issues in Britain, such as treatment of people with disabilities. But also, I think he's created his own problems by constantly leaning in towards reform in his attitude towards asylum seekers and refugees. He's fueled that particular horrible bonfire, and he's now paying the price for it. So reform are emboldened, and you saw what happened on Saturday with the horrible demonstration in London, which was led by people with very racist intent, and it's a horrible sight.
Well, to be fair, that wasn't a reform demonstration, that was Tommy Robinson.
I know it was Tommy Robinson, and I understand that there are some differences between them, but Reform are the ones that are leading
Nigel
the way.
Farage has actually banned Tommy Robinson from becoming a member of Reform.
Maybe they have, but the reality is the language Farage uses and what Farage promotes is then taken up in a different way, more violent, horrible way by Robinson and his friends, but it's moving in that direction. What we need is a government that has the moral fibre to say we will protect and support asylum seekers, we will look for safe routes, we will work with other countries to achieve it, we won't demonise them and blame them for the problems that are not of their making in our society.
Are you slightly torn on Keir Starmer's future? Because he was obviously a member of your shadow cabinet when you were Labour leader.
He was, yeah.
But starting a new party, it's kind of in your interests for him to continue to fail, isn't it?
Well, it's in nobody's interests for there to be failure in this country. What I want to see is political pressure to bring about social justice and change, and that's why we founded this party.
Do you feel he's betrayed you in a way? I mean, we've had this conversation before when he said you were his friend, and then clearly there wasn't a lot of love lost between you. But he's ditched all of the policies that he supported when you were leader.
That's the more important thing, whether he was my friend or not. It was a surprise to me, actually, but there we go. I said that on this programme here before. But the more important thing is he stood for leadership of the Labour Party on the basis of supporting the manifesto that he had both signed up to and campaigned for, along with me, in 2019, and he just ditched the whole thing.
Did you vote for him?
No. Why would I vote for him? I don't have a chance to vote for him.
No, but in the leadership election?
No, I voted for Becky Long-Bailey.
Right.
Which, since that's who I wanted, but, you know.
Okay.
She didn't win it.
Victoria Atkins.
Well, here we are, a little over a year since the general election, and it is extraordinary that not only are members of the public, like Martin, asking this question, but also there is open briefing in Westminster, in the great big corridors and corners of Westminster, as to the future of the Prime Minister. And if we think back to this year, it started with Freebiegate, when the Prime Minister, his wife, the then Deputy Prime Minister and the Chancellor were apparently receiving free clothes. We've since then had the Transport Secretary be removed because of her history over a mobile telephone. We've had the Anti-Corruption Minister removed. We've had the Homelessness Minister removed. We've had a health minister removed because of alleged WhatsApp messages. Of course, in the last 2 weeks, we've had the Deputy Prime Minister resign because she did not pay her tax properly. And yesterday, or the day before, last week, we had Lord Mandelson being sacked as the US ambassador.
It's almost
all
like
the warnings.
Old times in a Tory government, isn't it?
Oh, come on. I mean, this is an extraordinary record within 1 year. And what is more, today, apparently, he lost another advisor over some very, again, over WhatsApp messages regarding Diane Abbott. And so this paints a picture of a Prime Minister who has no direction as to his government. I think Jeremy and I can both agree on that. We don't understand his values. You know, what does he stand for? He gave us a big lecture on the doors of Downing Street telling us how he was going to be a force for good. But I'm afraid what we're seeing now, after a year of all of this and all of the, fighting over the welfare reform and so on, we are seeing, sadly, people at home watching their food bills increase week in, week out. We know from the Bank of England governor who gave evidence to the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago that a factor in food prices increasing was Labour's budget. Not the only thing, but one of the things. I was out on a farm today with Kemi. We've seen for ourselves the terrible impact that the threat of the family farm and the family firm.
So why isn't
taxes.
it? Yeah,
So we all feel a bit miserable, I think, with this government. We all feel pretty miserable.
But you must feel very miserable that you're not making any headway in the polls. You're on 16-17%. You ought to be romping ahead, given that litany that you've just come out with.
So, in fairness, and look, I absolutely believe in democracy. I've put myself through general elections as other members of Parliament do. We took a hell of a kicking last summer, and it was never going to be. We were never going to be able to flick that with a switch. And so what we're doing is the hard and at times, the unglamorous work, but the hard work of thinking, reflecting, working out what went wrong, but also what we did right. I'm very, very proud of the fact that our education record is that we have the best reading abilities of the Western world. But what we have to do is do this properly. And we are the only party going through this process at the moment and looking at what are the challenges that our country faces.
But when is it reasonable of me to say to you, well, OK, I understand that you need to regroup, you need to get new policies together. At some point, that argument sort of falls by the wayside. Is it after 2 years? Is it after 3 years?
Well, we've already announced very thoughtful and quite hard-hitting policies on immigration, for example, on net zero. Kemi was first out of the blocks to say, look, I think we've got to look at this again because we know.
But you're just following reform. You're reform light.
Well, no, absolutely not. Sorry, we are the ones who are. I can speak with my own experience of trying to hold this government to account on the family farm tax. It is the Conservatives who have been forcing votes in Parliament, who've been travelling up and down the country, listening to farming families, as I was today, 3 generations of a family who face the threat of this death tax because Labour ministers are ignoring the evidence being presented to them as to the impact it's having. And all of my shadow cabinet colleagues, we're all doing this, going through these processes because surely the one thing we are learning from politics around the world is that you cannot have knee-jerk reactions and just assume that politics is some sort of show. We have to, surely, we deserve, the electorate and we as a country deserve well-thought-out policies, and we Conservatives are the only party doing this.
Well, I've given you two quite a lot of time there because in case you have to run away in a second or two to vote. Rachel Johnson, let's come to you. Let's go back to Martin's question. Will the Labour Party oust Keir Starmer if they do badly at next year's local elections?
The Labour Party doesn't have the mechanisms for getting rid of its leaders, and it doesn't have the tendency towards regicide that the Tories have had. And as we've seen over 5 Tory prime ministers over the last 6 years or whatever it was, they would need 80, I think, MPs to sign a vote or to vote against Keir Starmer in the Commons. You know better than me. I think where I agree with Victoria is, you don't have to go back to the beginning of the year to see the list of things that have gone wrong for Keir Starmer, and he's had a particularly bad day in the office today and yesterday and the day before. But I think you have to distinguish between forced and unforced errors. And where I think the forced errors are the ones where he appointed Peter Mandelson to Washington, the most plum job in the diplomatic service, overriding a career diplomat, Karen Pierce. You could go over many more, but I think the real issue we have... Most people thought
that was an inspired move at the time.
It may have been, but he could turn that into an opportunity. If I were Keir Starmer, what I would be doing now is appointing one of his possible opponents and challengers to the Washington embassy.
Andy Burnham, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
Put in Jeremy Corbyn, who's establishing a rival party soon after conference. That would be an inspired choice.
This, Jeremy?
But no, can I
out of the race for what?
Ambassador to the US.
Yeah.
Oh!
You fancy that, wouldn't you?
I don't think Donald Trump and I would hit off straight away.
Well, you
never know.
Peter Mandelson and Donald Trump were a match made over. I just want to finish my point about forced and unforced errors, because I think this is key. I think all of these personnel moves, I think Paul Overton leaving, I think Peter Mandelson being sacked, these are sideshows. The main event is the budget. The main event is how the bond markets take the budget. If they mark our debt up again, I think then Keir Starmer is in a very weak position.
Steve Rigby, do you as a businessman look on these discussions with utter frustration and bewilderment?
You can't do anything else. I mean, we're 6 prime ministers in 9 years. The last thing we need is a 7th, to be frank with you. I mean, we've got to have some continuity. The business community is craving just some confidence and consistency. Despite the performance, I think changing prime minister right now is not the right thing to do. We've got 4 years to run of this government, for good or for bad. And I think the government needs to get a handle on its affairs urgently, and the party needs some unity.
What's your instinct, though, on the answer to Martin's question? If they do badly at next year's local elections, do you think that's it for Keir Starmer?
I mean, it's difficult at this moment to see how they won't do badly. So I think they have to brace themselves for that potential eventuality in the same way the Conservatives did in the elections this year. I think it was almost a foregone conclusion. So we're clearly facing a public which is wanting change. We, I think, all hoped that there was some change coming. That's not transpired yet. But I think the government, most of all, needs to get a handle on its affairs and start delivering on its promises.
Jeremy, remembering back to your time as leader, were there local elections where there was speculation about your position going up to the local elections, and how did you have a strategy to counter that?
Well, you try and work out how accurate the predictions are, and you try and get reports on the ground and try and visit the places. There was one year then it was predicted we were going to lose hundreds and hundreds of seats, and indeed I was confronted by colleagues in the division lobby saying you're going to cost us all. It didn't happen. We actually gained places. We won the mayoral election in London and other places under my leadership. We all gained control of a lot of councils. We didn't do that badly in the local elections. But by local elections, remember, people put a lot of store on them, and of course they're important, but the turnout in a local election is, roughly speaking, half that of a parliamentary election, and they are a sign of something. And if your supporters are simply refusing to turn out, then that is an indication of deep depression. Look at the by-elections at the moment. Labour are basically, in most of the council by-elections, losing around 20 to 25% move against them. And that's been consistent now for about 6 months. So I think the elections next year are going to be extremely difficult for Labour. There's going to be a lot of independents get elected as well.
Now, in case you have to run off during the commercial break...
We're trying to find out. That's why I was distracted by my phone. I was trying to get messages.
Well, before that
front.
happens, I've got to ask you, when is this party going to launch? Because it's been in the gestation period for quite a long time.
You just want a ticket for the launch, don't you?
I'd love to be there.
You've got to be able to host it or something.
I'll happily host it. I'll do anything you like. You know me. I'm a cheap
The plan is that we are having a lot of local meetings and discussions now, and they're often people coming together who've never met each other before, so it's important people get to know each other. We are then having big regional meetings leading to a conference in November, which will then have a constitution and a membership and an outline of a general broad approach, which will be about redistribution of wealth, it'll be about environmental sustainability, and it'll be something very different to reform or what others are offering, but something you're going to like.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you get me on board, you have done well.
Well, absolutely.
No, but the party's name, I mean, that seems to be what everybody's obsessed by, certainly the media seem to be.
It's your party.
Yeah, I know that's what it is at the moment. That's not what it's going to be.
Well, we're voting on it at the moment. We're polling members or supporters, because they're not members yet. We're polling supporters, and we're keeping a daily tally on it. People's Party is doing well. Your party is doing much better than I thought. Others have been left by the wayside. Some of them are quite wacky. Peter Pan Party, Robin Hood Party. There's some really, really wacky stuff.
Jeremy Corbyn tribute.
No. I was warned against this.